Back to Ozarks tonight. For months now, lawmakers have talked about delivering a second round of funding for Americans hurting from the COVID-19 pandemic. Democrats and Republicans have not been able to come to terms on a deal as of yet, and many were not sure if the framework of the deal would include another round of direct payments. But yesterday, Missouri Senator Josh Hawley said the president should veto any compromise that doesn't include direct payments. Our political analyst, Dr. Brian Calfano, is joining us now on the show. Brian, thanks for being here.
Good to see you as always, John.
Good to see you, Brian. So where do things stand right now in regards to a second round of COVID relief? And what do you make of Senator Hawley's comments?
Yeah, and let's not forget, I was the guy who came out and said, it's going to be done by September. And of course, that didn't happen. And, you know, part of the problem is we're just in such a cantankerous political mood in this country right now that, you know, people are really just dug into their views. If they can't agree on COVID, what can they agree on in terms of trying to get some relief to people who need it? You know, the overall package, I think, stands a good chance of passing. But whether or not Senator Hawley is going to be successful will depend, I think, a lot on Senator Hawley. I mean, he can talk about President Trump vetoing a bill, but as we all know, any bill that gets to President Trump's desk has to go through the Senate. So it really is incumbent on Senator Hawley to convince his colleagues, to convince Mitch McConnell especially, that a vote on a version of this package comes before the Senate and that enough Republicans support direct payments to be able to keep that in any provision that gets out of the Senate and moves on through the process. I doubt with the Democrats controlling the House, there's going to be much of an issue with putting the direct payments in there. And I think it's a smart move by Senator Hawley to want to make sure that as many people, including Missourians, are covered as possible. It's not just, John, as you know, the people who have lost their jobs. It's people who may still have jobs, but their hours have been reduced, or they have encountered unexpected costs due to something happening with a relative or someone in close proximity who's had to deal with COVID treatments. You know, there is a continuing, I think, sort of head scratching going on as to how much of COVID coverage really exists for those who are insured, not those who are uninsured, but the insured, because it's not clear with insurance companies what exactly they're covering if someone, God forbid, gets sick and has to end up in the hospital. So there's lots of moving parts to this. There's lots of suffering. Certainly balancing this out would be the conservatives who say, look, we can't just continue to dump $1 trillion+ in stimulus bills every few months from the Treasury into the American economy and expect that there's not going to be some long-term ramifications. Certainly, we're looking at an exploding national debt. And once you see Biden put into office, I think you're going to be looking at a lot of Republicans stepping back from the sort of spend as they wish type years they had under Donald Trump. And they're going to be calling for all kinds of restraining government spending. And I think that may be why there's some hesitance among some Republicans in the Senate right now to push through a massive bill that is going to include all of the provisions that Democrats want. And again, where this goes in the future will be depending a lot on, as I've said before, how well Joe Biden can get Mitch McConnell to go along with some of these larger spending ideas. I mean, do you want to have insurance for people, unemployment insurance at the federal level, sort of a boost to what they're already getting at the state level, plus $600 or $1,200 direct payments, plus relief for small businesses, plus payments for states and municipalities? I mean, these are a lot of important questions, certainly, and a lot of good causes all around. But at some point, you have to realize we just can't fund everything at these levels on a continual basis. And maybe this COVID vaccine will get us through this dire situation faster than we think.
For sure. From time to time, members of the House and Senate will break with their own political party. But we see Senator Hawley here going largely against the majority of the Republican Party. And, you know, Senator Hawley makes network news appearances with regularity, if you will. He's not high-profile member of the Senate, if you will. He's very visible in the Republican world. What do you make of him breaking rank with the rest of his party here?
No, I think he's smart in setting up his political brand as having a streak of populism, which always serves Republicans well, particularly coming on the heels of a Trump presidency where there was a lot of populist rhetoric going around. But I think the senator has to kind of think through what are the next steps with what he wants to champion, because there will be calls on the part of the Biden administration, incoming Biden administration, to have tax hikes on folks in the upper income brackets with those higher marginal rates going up on people who make over $400,000 a year. And it'll be interesting to see what Senator Hawley does with that, because certainly the people benefiting from those tax breaks have a lot more money than the vast majority of people in the state of Missouri. So, I mean, is he matching this populist rhetoric with wanting to spend money on direct payments to people with a policy on taxation that would be more equitable and less regressive? And so that's going to be, I think, a big tell. The senator's going to have to figure out what his position is on that if it gets to that point. And all expectations are, John, that in the first few months of the Biden administration, there will be some kind of proposal for tax reform that comes out of the White House. And we'll have to keep an eye on what the senator does at that point.
Sure, that's the next incoming administration, the Biden administration. But taking a look at the current administration, the Trump administration, of course, the president has to sign off on any deal here for COVID relief funding. You know, what is the optics around this for the Trump administration as they have just a little over a month left in the White House?
Well, I think if you're the president right now, what you want to do is to look as good as you can on your way out the door, because it's not settled down yet in terms of the question of whether the president runs in 2024. And so whatever he can do to put himself in the best position rhetorically and from a policy standpoint to be able to argue that he can come back and he should come back, making that case to the American people that what he did in office was worthwhile. And the president's gotten some knocks from both Democrats and Republicans that he hasn't really been as understanding or empathetic about the toll, I should say, that COVID's taken on the country. And so if he's able to come back to, I think, some kind of position that he looks like he's trying to help as many folks as possible, and that he is working on the behalf of the American people, you can just imagine the kind of rhetoric that would come out of this sort of thing. I think that puts him in good stead. I think this continual discussion about how fair or unfair the election was and whether that should be challenged at the Supreme Court level and all the sorts of news also coming out today, I think that doesn't necessarily help the president in the long term. People are not going to remember fondly a protracted fight over an election where, you know, basically your legal team has lost 40 plus lawsuits at this point. What they're going to remember in terms of Trump's benefit would be the rather lightning speed or warp speed, however they want to refer to it, with which this vaccine was rolled out, but also what the president was doing on the way out the door to help those affected by COVID. So I'd be very surprised if the president doesn't support in sort of a full-throated manner a robust package that provides as many of these types of benefits as possible to as many different groups as possible. In the end, he might hold out on state and local funding because that's always been an issue for him. He doesn't like he calls the Democrat-run areas. But in terms of direct payments, unemployment insurance, all those sorts of things, healthcare coverage, payment for medical facilities and that sort of thing to help with all the COVID recovery, I just can't see how it would not occur to the president that it's a good idea for him to be on the supporting side of those proposals.
Yeah, we'll have to just wait and see if both sides here can come together and make a deal. Our political analyst, Dr. Brian Calfano. Brian, thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks, John.
We'll be back with more Ozarks Tonight right after this.